With Maitland front rower Jeremy Tilse and Newcastle lock Michael Dan powering the Australian pack, the green and gold forward momentum was unstoppable. A penalty goal from former Wanderers junior Nick Wolfe put the Aussies in front by 13 points at the break. With the chance of recording an undefeated tour, the Irish landed 2 second-half tries. But the Australian schoolboys were inspired in the nation's capital, winning by 11 points. The three Hunter players will be hoping to hold their spots in the national side to tour the Pacific Islands later this year. Meanwhile, in Newcastle and Hunter rugby, coaches for the region's 2005 representative sides have been announced. Having put Maitland in a semi-final position this year, Warren Badger will lead the senior side. He'll be keen to improve on last year's result, when Newcastle Hunter was knocked out of the country championships before the finals. There's sure to be plenty of off-season work for the region's top rugby players, with the country titles to start in March. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
It was a colourful traffic jam in Maitland Mall during May, known as the Variety Bash, that created a wheelchair traffic jam in the Maitland Park playground today. The special occasion, time for the kids from Hunter River Community School to christen the Variety thank you gift for hosting their event, a Liberty Swing.
We thought, well, this is just such a fantastic thing, and we need to try and put these into as many parks throughout the state, as wide an area as possible, to try and help those kids be part of normal community and just enjoy life as much as they can.
And while there was a notable absence among those there to see the first Liberty Swing, it was a colourful traffic jam in Maitland Mall during May, known as the Variety Bash, that created a wheelchair traffic jam in the Maitland Park playground today. The special occasion, time for the kids from Hunter River Community School to christen the Variety thank you gift for hosting their event, a Liberty Swing.
We thought, well, this is just such a fantastic thing, and we need to try and put these into as many parks throughout the state, as wide an area as possible, to try and help those kids be part of normal community and just enjoy life as much as they can.
And while there was a notable absence among those there to see the first Liberty Swing smiles, a Lake Macquarie businessman helped make it all possible.
Jeff McCloy from McCloy Developments came forward and said that he would like to fund that.
Maitland is the first park in the Hunter to have one of the $33,000 swings, and the Mayor of the city is full of gratitude.
I think it'd be very hard to find words to say that anything else but the fact that we are grateful of having the Liberty Swing here. It's the first of its kind.
With generosity like this, Maitland Council is already rolling out the welcome mat for the children's charity to return next year. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The entrants could never be beaten for second spot, but this game still meant plenty in terms of finals aspirations, and Andrew Hunt started things off well for Souths. Mark Finch did his bit at the other end. But nothing could stop Liam Gibbons from levelling it. More chances came and went for the entrants, before Simon Vimpani put the home side back into the lead. The Central Coast side, though, just too good, scoring a 4-3 win as they head into the final series. On the ice, the Newcastle North Stars head into the finals of the National League on the back of a 6-3 win over the Canberra Knights. The series is in Erina this weekend. Meanwhile, Hunter-based Taekwondo fighters finally have a competition they can call their own. The Hunter Open was contested at the weekend, and it's hoped the tournament will fill the void for fighters looking to compete in a quality event without the long travel. Open for fighters of all ages, there is the traditional disciplines and the sporting side of things, with fighters matched on age and ability.
Of the 13,000 NRMA members surveyed across the state, more than 10% were from the Hunter. And according to locals, the Pacific Highway is this region's worst stretch of road. On a state level, it's second only to the Princess Highway.
It's like the Lakes Way, the Buckets Way, Nelson Bay Road, Canunga Drive down on the Central Coast. They've all come in rated really poorly by our members in those areas, and I wouldn't think that would surprise anyone in this area.
The Lakes Way received 154 mentions, while the Buckets Way pulled 98. Both thoroughfares feature in the state's top 10 worst roads. The New England Highway, however, doesn't, but it's still registered among locals as a key safety concern. Among the findings, modifications are required on the main roads between Merriwa and Scone, Maitland and Dungog, on Nelson Bay Road, and to get the F3 link up and running sooner rather than later. And although the NRMA claims there's no political agenda behind its latest road safety campaign, you can't help but think there soon will be, an issue being acknowledged at a federal level.
I know that the Labor Party has a very significant commitment to the upgrade of the Pacific Highway.
Look, roads are an important issue because people need to feel safe when they're driving. They don't want to destroy their cars on potholes, and I'm determined to fix those roads.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
It's hard to believe that a month ago this 43-year-old mother was constantly exhausted, spending 1/3 of her time on a kidney dialysis machine. Martina Bowen had suffered from kidney failure from the age of 2, and after her body rejected one organ transplant, she faced a life of heavy treatment. But her son Ben has returned the gift of life she gave to him 19 years ago.
I felt very anxious at first because it was so young, but then the doctors reassured me that he can live a full life with one kidney. So I was very grateful for that.
Haunted by images of his mother sticking needles into her arm for treatment, Ben was just 5 years old when he made the selfless decision.
I didn't want to see my mother confined to a dialysis machine every day.
And that she isn't, taking up hobbies she'd been forced to give up. The mother and son team is also planning an overseas holiday. There are a few hurdles to overcome first though, with doctors closely monitoring Martina to ensure her body doesn't reject the new organ.
It is almost a cure in that we can expect these transplants on average to run at least 17 to 20 years.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Lakes back rower Tony Hutton made a surprise return from injury for the must-win game against his old club. His impact immediate, laying on the first try. The Seagulls looked to have a certain second before things broke down. It only got West started, and who else but Craig Wise to make the smart play. A kick in behind found no Seagulls, but a flying Gavin Cook. It seemed the money play, halfback Sean Wallace doing likewise only minutes later as Cook became something of a magnet for the ball, the centre crossing for a second. Then a mistake you wouldn't wish on anyone. Jared Lynch gifting West another and an 18-6 lead. Lakes weren't going down without a fight. But just as he'll do at season's end with the coaching role, Troy Fletcher offloaded to Ryan Dagwell as Wests rolled towards another decider. Broadmeadow was doing everything but score in their must-win game against Edgeworth in NBN Soccer League's preliminary final. Liam Maguire with the best first-half chance. Neither side, though, was able to breach the defence in a scoreless 90 minutes. Kurt O'Brien's driving strike almost ended it in the first period of extra time. A free kick eventually led to the match winner, and while it wasn't pretty, Frodo Hellam's effort providing the magic finish Broadmeadow was after.
It was enough to bring tears to Maria Delaney's eyes. The vision of her beloved Holden Commodore, nicknamed Betsy, torched and gutted. Maria suffers emphysema and her son David is intellectually handicapped, so for them the car was essential.
Very important to me, my son. I can't walk much to all this sort of business and I'm being sick. And I depend on it to do my shopping, to go round to my girlfriends.
Maria says crime has reached crisis point with her uninsured car stolen from the back of her home and senselessly torched only a few kilometres up the road.
Police have got to do something. People have got to stand up to these kids. You know, it's time someone spoke out about them. They've got to get them because they're ruining people's lives.
Police say 6 stolen, burnt-out cars have been located in the town of Pelham recently, 4 of them still there today.
There's probably a different car out there nearly every week, like torched and stuff like that, yeah. It's just getting out of control.
And following the news of this latest crime, the community is rallying together to call for a greater police presence in Curry and Pelham.
I'd love to see a lot more police in the area, I really would.
For the older people in our community, I can understand why they don't want to go out at night.
But police say their presence is adequate.
As of yesterday, another 4 additional probationary constables were allocated to Cessnock, so it's not as though there's not enough police.
There was some good news for the pensioner today, though, a local car dealership promising her a new car.
Isn't that lovely? So there are good people, isn't there?
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A night since he was 17, and with 221 top-grade games behind him, Robbie O'Davis is the first to admit he's finding it hard to believe that it all comes to an end this weekend. A state and Australian player, it's a club career that includes 2 premierships and a Clive Churchill medal that means so much to the fullback. Much like defenders he tormented over 13 years, he's wondering where it went. A 2001 Premiership winner and 2002 Club Players player, Matt Parsons will soon return home to where it all began at Werris Creek, with plenty of memories and content with his place in Knights history.
The greatest thing about playing here is that having been at St George and South, who are two of the most famous clubs that have ever been involved in football, I think in 50 years' time Newcastle will be spoken about in the same way.
The club will also farewell Ben Kennedy and Michael Ennis on Saturday night in a game that will also decide the Alan McMahon Shield, which was struck in honour of the former Tigers player and Newcastle coach who died last year. So even without the finals, there is plenty to play for. Jim Callanan, NBN News. If there's any consolation for farmers forced to destock because of the drought, it would have to be the prices they're fetching. While a lack of rain has had an impact on quality, returns are exceptional, with the best steers at Singleton today making 240 cents per kilo, while calves topped at 230.
They'll keep pretty high until any big numbers start to come in or the export markets start to slip a little bit, but for just the foreseeable future they look pretty good.
Current prices are close to 2001 records and shipments to Japan are heading for 375,000 tonnes, 25% greater than last year. It certainly isn't all good news though, with a lack of feed forcing many to sell.
You've got to make difficult management decisions and cut your numbers back, wean calves off their mothers and sell them to try and preserve your breeding herd.
Despite the adversity, there's an overwhelming sense of optimism among our farmers.
I suppose we'll get over it as time goes by. Hopefully there's rain not very far around the corner.
Take something that's very artistic and insular and throw it into something that's kind of extroverted and like a performance thing.
The deafening sound of FA-18s and F-111s can be heard overhead, and there's no mistaking the marks they leave behind. While our winged craft demand all the attention, on the ground there's a battle of another kind taking place.
The target is a red on the eastern side. The vehicle is facing to the east.
Identifying an enemy target could mean the difference between life and death.
It just drives you to make sure you do a really good job when you do it, because you'd hate to have it on your conscience that you made a mistake.
Captain Atkinson is among 8 Army, Navy and Air Force personnel training to guide Australian aircraft into battle. It's there they'll be responsible for protecting our troops from the enemy, as well as preparing battlefields.
If the guy on the ground has everything under control, is talking to the jets and working with the jets well, they'll get the bombs on the correct target.
Today's training exercise is the closest many of these men have come to combat, with live ammunition including Mk-82 bombs giving them a taste of what to expect. Colleen West, NBN News.
The sign says it all. Lake Macquarie Landcare is a winner. Its environmental initiatives earning it the top gong at the Australian Landcare Awards overnight.
It's national recognition, and it's always got to be good. We last year about this time we won the state one as a gold medal in that, and that was big enough.
170 individual groups operate in the area, completing hundreds of environmental projects and planting around 60,000 trees and shrubs annually.
We've got groups working on the coast, on dune systems. We've got a lot of groups working around urban streams in bushland, in reserves, corridors, on the lake foreshore.
The umbrella Lake Macquarie Landcare Group was judged in 2 areas, winning praise for its well-established network of volunteers in the office that supports them, and for an initiative that saw the construction of an artificial wetland used to filter stormwater runoff from a nearby housing estate.
Because of the fact that it's highly dispersible soils and it flowed into a degraded basin that flows into a degraded part of Lake Macquarie.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
This was no ordinary protest, it was a demonstration of global proportions. Liam Phelan travelled to Beijing to hoist a banner which read, "No Olympics in China until Tibet is free," gaining maximum publicity and maximum impact. It was a well-planned protest coinciding with the handover of the Olympic Games from Athens to Beijing.
The IOC back in 2001 on awarding the Games to Beijing indicated that they thought that that would be a way to improve the human rights situation in China and in Tibet. 3 years later, we haven't seen any positive movement.
The father of 2 has returned home to Tyes Hill to a very relieved wife, Alison. There were concerns for his safety, Liam's goal a very risky one, especially in China.
We managed to display the banner for, I think it was around 10 minutes, which we thought was quite a long time in China, and then we were detained by police.
Mr. Phelan and his American colleague were held and questioned for 7 hours inside a Beijing police station. They also had their passports taken and visas cancelled. He's hoping the protest will go some way to stopping the human rights atrocities in Tibet.
There are numerous human rights problems in Tibet, from torture, rape, killings, abusive culture, destruction of monasteries. The list is endless, really.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Back home in Australia for a visit after being crowned Miss Universe in June, Jennifer Hawkins was the star of a welcome home bash for Sydney's A-list glamour set last night. But tomorrow she'll be in Newcastle, not far from the proud community of Holmesville where she grew up. And she'll find a likeness of herself standing tall at the Holmesville pub.
Sitting up on my balcony there waving and welcoming everybody to Holmesville. I don't know what she's going to say about it though when she sees her.
After brekkie and a facial, Jennifer will limo it into the city for a civic reception in Newcastle before holding a press conference and a fashion parade. Then it's down to Lake Macquarie for a second civic function. Just an ordinary day, really.
So tomorrow from 1 o'clock we're going to transform our centre court into a fashion parade. A stage will be raised up and Jennifer Hawkins, Miss Universe, is coming back to Newcastle and we're very proud to be hosting her here at Westfield.
We're very proud of the fact that someone like that has been able to make this international achievement. And we're very keen to be able to give her the formal recognition from the city, but also be able to share in her success.
So do you expect her to pop into the pub to see you?
Oh, we hope so. Sometime Saturday. It'd be very nice if she would. We've got our 100-year celebrations of the hotel happening here this weekend.
It's hard to miss the welcome injection of height into the Pirates this season, but the club has also recruited some classy smaller men. One of those, Brad Davison, is on the rebound from groin surgery. Despite struggling through training this week, the point guard will go up against the West Sydney Razorbacks and Brisbane Bullets in Grafton at the weekend.
Yeah, really good. I'm happy with the way I've recovered from it, and I'm just waiting to get a bit more strength back into the groin. I'll be 100% pretty soon, I think.
This weekend's pre-season road trip will go ahead without key import Clayton Shields. The American has recovered from a knee injury that kept him off the court since he arrived in Newcastle a month ago. However, Shields was rushed to hospital this week. The club says he was suffering heart palpitations and it's unknown when he'll be fit to play.
It seems to have settled down and it's just a question now of waiting a few days, getting the results of some tests and see whether he can get back on the court in the future.
Meantime, Ben Melmoth has recovered from an early season ankle injury. Todd Nardi, NBN News. There was virtually nothing spared at the Stroud Country Club. At around 9:30 last night, 3 men, 2 armed with shotguns, threatened 2 patrons and a woman working behind the bar, forcing her to open the safe.
They took everything in the safe and locked the 3 people that were here in the cool room, and they were there for about 20 minutes.
One of the patrons was recounting the experience with club management today. While he was in the cool room, the intruders smashed poker machines, taking the change, while they also escaped with cigarettes and a laptop.
Our staff member is a mess, as you can imagine. It's a very, very scary thing to have to go through.
3 hours later, 3 men matching the same description struck 2 women outside the Enna Bay Tavern and stole their mobile phones. Police say the men then broke into the tavern through a window and stole more money after threatening staff.
At both locations we're looking at a moderate sum of money. We're looking at quite a few $1,000s were taken from both locations, so they've gotten away with a reasonable sum for the night.
Police believe a BMW which was stolen in Sydney earlier this week was possibly used in the robberies. The fire-damaged vehicle was found at Raymond Terrace this morning. One of the suspects is described as being about 180 centimetres tall, while the other 2 are around 165. All 3 were of a slim build and wearing balaclavas and gloves during the raids. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
If grand finals are all about good starts, Troy Fletcher would have liked his over again. The Northern Blues, though, bursting out of the blocks. Adam Brown sending Kamal Ganley over for first points. West were held up twice in the search for an equaliser. But it wasn't long, with Wires providing the smart play for Andrew Hickey. The winger soon had a double as West hit the lead for the first time. You could understand the Blues questioning Scott Asmus' try just before half-time. But after the break, the Blues could only blame themselves, while Andrew Hickey was left celebrating 3 tries. When Paul Delaney crossed, West had kicked out to 32 points. Then came the Blues fight back. 3 tries in 6 minutes breathed life back into what looked a hopeless situation. They closed to within 4, but the margin was just too great. West home 32-28 and sending out their coach Troy Fletcher, Scott Asmus and Andrew Weir with the fairy tale finish. What a game to make your first grade debut. With goalkeeper Craig Carter forced to withdraw, youngster Stephen Kemp was rushed into the top side. Both glovemen endured a tough start though, with Brad Swancott tested. Western's potent attack though was largely kept in check by a watertight Broadmeadow defence. Joint leading goal scorer for the season, Ricky Metcalf, had few opportunities. But when given a shot from the spot in the second half, he didn't miss. He laid on the next, with substitute Frode Hellam finishing for a 2-0 lead. And didn't the home crowd enjoy it? Western needed something quick, and despite desperate Broadmeadow defence, Stu Mishalik finally broke through for the Bears. It was a short-lived comeback, Liam Maguire and Metcalf combining before Hellam finished off a magic day. Broadmeadow upsetting Western to score their first top-grade premiership win and start a party that could last well until next season.
Adam Cheng could not speak a word of English when he moved from Hong Kong 3 years ago. Today he's topping his language class.
I've got the opportunity to learn English, and that helped me a lot.
And while he's come to Australia specifically for an education, it's a very different story for dozens of Sudanese students who have fled their war-torn country in search of a better and safer life. Many have overcome language and cultural barriers to forge new futures here in the Hunter.
When I came here, it was difficult, but now it's easy. I can understand what they say to me.
If you know how to speak, you can connect with the people.
These are just some of the success stories that have grown out of an English program being taught at Lambton High School. Ros Giannikis is one of 3 teachers who have dedicated their lives to helping young new Australians discover their potential.
I've been a teacher for many years, but I haven't really known this sort of reward from teaching, just to see the smiles on their faces knowing where they've come from.
And it's this enthusiasm that's earned her one of 10 Regional Excellence in Teaching Awards that will be presented during Education Week celebrations. Colleen West, NBN News.
.3,000 kilometres, 1,000 of it's on dirt, and postie bikes aren't made for fast travelling. 75 kilometres an hour top speed.
From now till October is magpie breeding season, and anyone considered by the protective predators to be a threat to the nest is in trouble.
But they just hit them, they swoop on them and they don't know they're coming. They come in at shoulder level behind them.
A Newcastle woman is in hospital after being attacked in the suburb of Hamilton this afternoon.
The poor lady had landed on her head and she had neck injuries, and so the ambulance had to come and get her and put her in the stretcher and take her away. Yeah.
Another walker needed stitches today after being swooped on in the same street where locals are getting used to the frequent air raids.
When all of a sudden this swoop happened and he took a chunk out of the back of my head, and it was bleeding quite profusely.
They're only protecting their nest because their nests are in the big trees along the street here, and every year we get them and they come out and they just start bombing the push bike riders for the helmets for some reason or other.
If you do notice that there are magpies nesting in the area, try to avoid the area. If children are outside, don't let them go outside unsupervised, and perhaps just let them have their space and try and maybe cross to the other side of the road.
Keep an eye out in your leafy streets. Beaks are being sharpened, ready to attack. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The Tomaree Peninsula is one community confronting the challenge of what will happen to its children. Over 200 pupils today signed a public pledge to either continue their education, undertake training programs or get a job. And as the Real Futures program begins its second year, Tomaree High's senior school already boasts improved retention rates.
Out of 237 students last year, we accounted for 235 of those. Only 2 students we were not able to say were in permanent work, training or at school.
Six-time world women's surfing champion Layne Beachley today used her formula for success to provide inspiration for the pupils as they contemplated their commitment.
But inevitably, I think the ultimate importance about success is having fun along the way. And I mean, if you do something you love, you don't work a day in your life.
Another future in the spotlight today at Tomaree High, a class of Year 12 HSC English students that have had a number of casual teachers this year. The principal says trial exams have helped pinpoint students that need extra assistance.
I think it's fair to say that they have learnt the curriculum, and I don't think that there is a problem in that regard.
Gary Blair, NBN News. Concern about traffic gridlock has prompted senior officers to ask Newcastle Council to consider the barriers for the Nobbies Road and Watt Street roundabouts. Police say temporarily closing Wharf Road would help them with the orderly clearing of extreme traffic congestion from the area. Speed bumps and one-way traffic flow are also being proposed for Tugberth Road near the pilot station.
In the early 1900s, some of these very faces would have been listening keenly for the end-of-class bell at the Kurri Kurri Public School. The ex-pupils were again all ears today. Many of them had grand or great-grandchildren performing a tribute for the school's centenary. While the cleaners' strike has kept many away from New South Wales public schools this week, today's birthday was simply too important for hundreds of Kurri Kurri people to miss.
There's something special about Kurri Kurri. We hark never on the negative. We look at the positive, and as always, the Kurri people have turned up in droves to support us today.
Lessons started at Kurri Public 100 years ago when local miners saw the need to have their children educated in the town. 91-year-old Mavis Erskine remembers when the school was just one small building. She started in 1918 and was a little surprised to see the centenary celebrations.
I didn't ever think I would, but I did. I'm one of the lucky ones.
Mrs Erskine shared the day with great-granddaughter Sarah. She's part of the family's fourth generation to receive a Kurri education. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
In what's her second visit to Newcastle in as many months, the Deputy Opposition Leader has again used the city to launch Labor's latest education and training policy, worth $186 million.
The whole idea is to assist small and medium-sized businesses to take on more apprentices.
Businesses like Stelform, the engineering firm, currently has 12 apprentices on its books, offering places in welding, boiler making and fabrication.
In the good old days, you would literally have hundreds of apprentices in every engineering trade in Newcastle. Today, you're lucky to have 24.
Brad Burgess says he didn't have any trouble finding a job. The stumbling block was getting started.
I paid for my own insurance and then done a bit of work experience in a company in Rutherford.
In light of the skills shortage, the Coalition is also playing the vocation training card.
The government has stolen Labor's idea. It's a good one. We're pleased they've come around to it, but it is too little too late.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Can't get out now. Jillaby Jet makes a run from the 1-1, and then came Risque Rhythm. Still Duets leads. Chain of Commanders still not out. Forest Vic a length away. Jillaby Jet trying to wind up. Duets leads. Chain of Command still can't get through. She's laying in. Duet straightened up close to the line. And
charged with stealing 3 mature date palms from a Swansea reserve. The theft of the palms from Crown land sparked 3 months of community angst and protests. Police claim the date palms were removed and transported to a housing development next to the Toowoomba police station. The man will face Belmont local court late next month.
Walking the beat to a different tune, officers from across the Hunter completed a short march to Newcastle's Christ Church Cathedral, arriving on cue. Thankfully, there were no Hunter officers killed in the line of duty in the 12 months before this National Police Remembrance Day, which meant thoughts turned to the constable who died on the job near Goulburn in June, along with the 243 New South Wales officers who have been killed while serving the community since 1803.
Probably it's one of the things that the public aren't really too au fait with is the amount of the number of times that our people go out on a daily basis and confront danger.
Former Highway Patrol officer Chris Thornton, who was killed in a pursuit in 2002, was again fondly remembered with members of his family at today's Newcastle service.
The families of those people, it also gives them the opportunity to be part of a community that honours police, and especially those that have died in the course of their duty.
Tribute was also paid to retired Hunter officers Sergeant Gregory Gill, Superintendent Harold Ferris and Sergeant Ronald Simpson, who have passed away in the last 12 months. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Former Falcon, now Brisbane guard, Derek Rucker has fond memories of Newcastle and he hopes to come away with another one after tonight's game.
Yeah, well, the one season I played here was a pretty good year, and yeah, it's always fun to come back, and I'm actually pretty glad that they're back in the competition.
Turning 38 on Saturday, Rucker is one of the most experienced players in the NBL. Since moving north, he's helped turn the Bullets around from wooden spooners to premiership contenders. Brisbane's story provides some comfort for the Pirates who, after finishing their maiden season last, pushed the Bullets all the way in a pre-season trial earlier this month, surprising everyone.
But one thing was for sure, they seemed a lot more organised and seemed a lot more committed to trying to get a win. So,
unlike the Hunter though, most of Brisbane's players from last season have been retained. Tonight's game in Newcastle is also their first of 3 on the road, coach Joey Wright pulling out all stops to come away with the win.
Last week we had 3 guys, 3 of our starters I thought wasn't going to play in this game, so they decided to get it together and try to push through, and they're all going to play in this game.
In the Pirates camp, imports Brian Weathers and Kavossi Franklin feature in the starting 5. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
A great lead-up for events like the Foster Half Ironman, the Maitland Triathlon always attracts a crack field to its Morpeth-based circuit. The elite men were the first of 6 waves of athletes to complete the 800-metre swim. Only a matter of seconds separated the leading men, while Nicole Hackett emerged well ahead of her rivals. It's a drill the former Olympian is happy to follow after a broken collarbone only saw her return to racing in September. Up front, it was Melbourne's Leon Griffin who set the pace on the 30k bike leg. After taking the lead midway through, he simply rode out of sight. And once on foot, he looked unbeatable. Hackett just as comfortable in the women's, but even she would have been impressed with the power of Griffin as he headed home on the 8-kilometre run. Holding a 3-minute lead, he didn't need to. Nathan Campbell was never going to catch him, and while local Joel Cook won 3rd, he didn't lose his manners. After 1 hour and 22 minutes, Griffin strolled home the winner, 2 better than his 3rd place last year.
I had a few problems last year, so I had to come back this year and finish the job off.
Hackett home 11 minutes later, ahead of Rebecca Keats, who settled for runner-up 2 years running, while talented teenager Melanie Sexton rounded out the placings in her home event.
Jason Curry is facing a charge of dangerous driving, which resulted in the death of his 20-year-old colleague. A police constable stationed in Sydney at the time, he was behind the wheel of this Mazda MX-5 on September 12, 2002. After rounding a sharp right-hand bend on George Booth Drive near Curry, the car veered onto the wrong side of the road and crashed into an oncoming utility, being driven by truck driver Michael Carr. Mr Carr told the court he first saw the sports car as it entered the corner. He said it started to move sideways and said he noticed smoke coming from the tyres before it collided with the front of his utility. It came at me like a blur, just bang. Michael Carr said he went to the assistance of the other accident victims and asked Jason Curry if they were all right. He said, "Look what I've done to my beautiful girl." Melanie Hilton died at the scene, while Jason Curry was later airlifted to hospital suffering serious injuries. The defence claims there was gravel on the road, but Michael Carr said he hadn't noticed any. The trial continues. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
I've never played golf, by the way.
The Sydney company plans to develop the old coal mining area into a mixed tourist and residential development and has already launched an application with Lake Macquarie Council for a $40 million stage, including a sports club on the former Moonee Colliery washery. Future stages of the project will eventually cross the Wyong boundary, creating joint responsibilities.
We're looking at developments that really go hand in glove, and as it is now, we really don't have a means of assessing them together, the total impact.
Today's meeting of mayors was instigated by Wyong's Brenton Pavia, not just over the Rose Corp development, but on a number of common issues such as the health of the lakes system and the coastal environment in general.
Information dissemination, Ray, that's what it's all about, us learning and maybe exchanging some ideas back for Greg.
Councillor Pavia also put forward the idea of joint meetings of the two councils in the future, an agenda not immediately embraced by Lake Macquarie Mayor, Councillor Greg Piper. Major development in the West Lakes area in recent years has seen traffic on the major link to Newcastle grow out of proportion to the standard of the 1.5 kilometres between the roundabouts. Tees will widen the road from 2 lanes to a 4-lane divided carriageway, incorporating the building of 2 new bridges over Cockle Creek. As well, the right turn bay into Anzac Parade will be improved and a bike track and extra wetlands will be included. Work is expected to begin next year and be completed by 2007.
After his B-double semi-trailer crashed off the Pacific Highway at Kempsey this morning and smashed into a power pole, the man was travelling north on the highway at around 10 a.m. and was just south of the Kempsey CBD when his rig toppled onto its side and skidded along the edge of the road into the pole. Police and fire crews worked for more than 5 hours to free the man, who was conscious but seriously injured. Once he was finally cut free, the man was transported to hospital shortly before 3:30 this afternoon.